it's been 4 years since I last spoke to this gentleman in front of me, and that was actually for his first Bollywood film, and that was Dharak. And now, 4 years later, we're speaking for your fifth year actually in the industry. So, a huge congratulations and welcome to you on Filme Shilmy, Ishaan.
Oh, thank you. Thanks, Anuj. I wouldn't count the two pandemic years. So I'd say it's been two.
Yeah.
um, yeah, nearly 5 years now. So that's, geez, wow. That's a way to get into the interview. Um, but thank you. I'm glad to be doing this with you.
Absolutely. Well, look, as you mentioned as well, it is your fifth year as an actor, and we're seeing you in two distinct works back to back, Phone Bhoot and Pippa. So tell me, how determined are you, Ishaan, in terms of reinventing and pushing yourself as an actor?
Well, I'm 4 years into my young career, and I would call this an invention still. I mean, reinventing would be a later stage. I am still discovering myself as a performer, as an actor, and one thing that I think it would be safe to say now is that I do get drawn towards diverse and versatile roles that allow me to showcase a new uh, dimension of me in my repertoire as an actor, and that's just I've kind of followed my instinct on that so far. I've not tried to follow a set structure or establish myself in a certain space. I've kind of just followed my instinct about characters that are exciting for me, and that's one of the parts of the job that I love so much, is to be able to step into a completely new direction and then rediscover yourself. So yeah, rediscovery is definitely on the cards. Yeah.
Right. Well, look, I think Phone Booth looks funky and quirky. It looks really,
It is.
it does look like a really sort of, how do I describe it? A Dinchak sort of a film, if
Yeah.
that's the word I can use.
Yeah.
But I think it's also your first attempt at horror and comedy together. So besides the director and the script at hand, what other materials did you rely on, and how tough was it to encapsulate both these styles because they are very difficult to sort of get?
Well, so to set a little bit of context, I am a fan of both the genres. I am a glutton for horror films, and I love comedy. But this one specifically, I would say, is more of a comedy. It's leaning more towards the comedy side. It
Mhm.
uses the horror element as a tool for the comedy. So it's spoofy, it's goofy, it's fourth wall breaking, slightly subversive. It's a unique world, and it's different from anything we've seen in the horror comedy zone done here in India specifically. So I think it's going to be a different kind of film in that sense, and it's definitely more of a comedy than a horror film. The horror is used as a tool, like I said. There are a lot of pop cultural elements in it, a lot of references, a lot of Easter eggs planted through the film that there's a lot of fun to be had with. But it's not a terribly scary film. It's much more gaggy and spoofy.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think also the fact that we're seeing you, Siddhant, and Katrina, I think in a very different light as well. So, and it also
Yeah.
seems, because I mean, I watched that Coffee with Karan episode, and I remember messaging you actually after I watched it. Until date,
Yeah.
it was my favorite episode actually, and it seems like you guys had that really fun synergy together. But I think when it does come to a comedic sort of film like Phone Booth, how important is that camaraderie more than ever? Offset in order to make sure that translates very warmly and authentically on screen.
I think to have a good relationship and chemistry with your co-actors is something that I think is very important, regardless of the kind of film that you're working on. If you are sharing screen space together, it's important to have broken the wall of the have broken the ice before you start um, that level of energy exchange that you need to have, regardless of the genre. But the comedy, of course, it becomes that much more important because you need to be really snappy and spontaneous and draw off of each other's cues and energies. So I think it played a very big part in lending to the dynamic of these characters. You know how we interacted in our off-screen sort of banter. It lent itself really well to the film, but the characters are really fun. The characters are very well defined, so we all knew where we were coming from. You know, all the characters are very different from each other, so they play off each other's quirks in a really funny way, and in a really interesting way. So yeah, that was a big part of working on this movie. It's a very big dynamic in the film, and it's different. You're right. It's different. It's unique. The casting is fresh. The space is new for each of us, and everyone involved in the film. We have lovely actors like Jackie Shroff and Sheba Chadda and many others in this ensemble cast that have all got quirky and different roles. You know, very unlike what they've done before. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because I feel like a film like Stree really broke the glass ceiling, I think, for the horror comedy genre in Hindi
Yeah,
cinema.
totally. Yeah.
But I mean, not to put any sort of pressure on Phone Booth in that way, but how do you feel that this film can perhaps take the horror comedy genre in a different style? I mean, just to sort of catch on what you had just mentioned about the film being a different sort of style. How do you feel this can really push that horror genre comedy? I mean, which direction do you think it needs to go in actually as a genre, as a style of cinema?
I mean, that entirely depends on the subject matter and the substance that you're trying to portray. Um, with this film, I would say I loved Stree. I thought it was probably one of the best, if not the best, films in that genre, specifically of horror comedy. It blended the two so well, and it was a very, very adeptly made film. It landed every single beat, and just a great film. It's one of those films that is going to remain in the memory of the Indian audience for a long time. So our film is very different from that. Tonally, it's very different. Like I said, that was a much more scary film. This is a much more spoofy film. It's a very self-aware, kind of film, which the humor is a little more off kilter in this one, and it takes horror and turns it on its head. It's going to subvert it and show it to you in a way that you've not seen it before, which is what's unique about this film. So in that way, I would say tonally it's really different from Stree, and yet it has all that you would desire from a film that promises you that level of entertainment. It's an entertainer. That's what this film is, and we were very sure about the tone that we wanted to play this at, because with a farcical comedy this way, there is a tendency sometimes to overplay it, and if you do the opposite, and you haven't given it enough energy, it falls flat. The jokes don't land. So it's a bit of a tightrope, and as an actor, as a performer, it's a tightrope to walk.
True, very true.
And it's fun. It's really fun because the writing is so outlandish and like unnecessarily out there. It's like it's absurd, right? There are portions of the film where it's absurd. It's like funny because it's so ridiculous. So the tendency to play that outward and play that exaggerated was something that we were very aware of, and we didn't want to do that. We wanted to play it in a very real way. Like, the two stupidest people on earth obviously don't credit themselves. They credit themselves more than that. They don't think they're the stupidest people on earth. They just are. They think that this is them living their lives as they would.
Yeah.
So it's just how they would naturally react to these situations, and that's what we've tried to bring about in this film. And hopefully, because it's just so ridiculous, it'll tickle your funny bone.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, they really took the Harry Potter spell ridiculous in quite a literal form, I think, with this one. So that's pretty awesome. No, but I think it's cool because when I saw the trailer, it kind of reminded me of films like Andaz Apna Apna meets Ghostbusters in that sort of a vein. And I really miss films like that, actually. I can't wait to watch the movie. So even though Phone Booth has a comedic tinge to it, do you feel humor helps you in scary situations in life as well?
course. I mean, that's all we have is how we look at things and how we choose to deal with whatever life throws at us, and to take things with a pinch of humor uh, is always, I think, the braver way. And I think it just adds so much color to your life if you're able to see the uh, see the to have a sense of humor about life even when it's throwing an adverse situation at you. I think it makes you stronger, and I think it also helps you take things on head on and deal with them in a better way. And yeah, I think it's one of the virtues that I really admire in people when they're able to have a sense of humor about anything in life, and I also think that a sense of humor is reflective of your intelligence and your IQ. So
Yeah, true.
I really enjoy that, and I look out for that in people.
Definitely. Well, I mean, look, I mean, you've got Phone Bhoot, and then you've got a completely different film that's coming out very soon, which is Pippa. I think you know how excited I am for Pippa for many reasons, and I think the fact that we're seeing such an important unsung story, I would say, actually, of a national hero sort of emerge on screen. It always makes me very happy to see such stories evolve on screen. But um, playing a real life war hero is a role which isn't explored by much young actors. I think it sort of usually happens at a time where you reach a certain cusp of your career, where you've got a certain experience, and then you get such roles and then you explore it. So how responsible did you feel when playing this character, especially since it is an Indian Army captain?
Well, I felt multiple levels of responsibility with this one. As an actor, of course, to have a film like this resting on your shoulders is at the stage that I'm in my career right now is a big responsibility. But of course, but also because we were telling the story that has not been told in this way before. It's about the 1971 war. The film follows the regiment of 45 Cavalry that was led by Major D.S. Narag and my character, Captain Balram Singh Mehta. At the time, he was an acting captain. Now he's, of course, a brigadier. He was the second in command.
Mhm.
He was a young officer, all of 26, which was my age when I shot it. I mean, I'm 26 right now, but I'll be 27 in a couple of days. So, yeah, it's perhaps the first time that you will see a young actor like myself portraying a young army officer. Age appropriate casting in that way is very rare in our films.
Yeah,
Um,
true.
these films are usually mounted on a big scale, and this film certainly has been mounted on a very big scale. And I'm very grateful for the opportunity because as an actor, I'm on the lookout for roles that challenge me, and this certainly did. Um, Also, among other things, it is a coming of age story. There's a very strong family story in there. And like I said, it's a war film. We don't make many of those. We don't make out and out war films in India, and this has been done with huge amounts of research and effort and thoughtfulness, and uh, we have been supported by the Indian Armored Corps,
Oh, wow.
which we are very grateful for. We shot with a real PD-76 tank, which is a 70-year-old tank that was actually used in this war. They're amphibious tanks, thus the name Pippa. Um, Pippa actually refers to ghee ke dabbe hua karte the, tin boxes
Hmm.
that you would give, that people would store ghee in, and they would float on water. So the first time that there was a display of these tanks, which would actually quite unbelievably swim in deep water, even a sea, you could put it in a sea. Um, the the spontaneous reaction of one of the people who were commemorating this event, who was an army officer, he said, "Eh, te Pippa hai." So that name just stuck, and because it floats on water. So that's what the title refers to. There's a lot of very interesting new things that are explored in that film. It was a very physical role among other things, and we had 2 boot camps to prepare, which was a great experience. We spent time with the army, and it's an exciting film. I think we've had a great team, shooting it. We've done some stuff that has never been done before. I can say that very proudly. So I'm excited for that film to come out. I'm very proud of it.
No, and I'm really proud that you've done such a film like this. In fact, you, Mrunal, Priyanshu, the entire cast, Raja sir as well. I mean, what a great director he is. But I
He's
think,
wonderful.
yeah, I mean, Ishan, when it comes to a role like Deepa, because like I said, when you hear stories about the Indian Army on the news, we see it as a headline, but then when you're actually playing a role and you see the sacrifice, that patriotism that they have for their country, I mean, it always brings a tear to my eye. So how eye-opening was it for you in terms of actually seeing the sacrifices the Javans do for India and for the country? Do you feel it sort of evoked a sense of a different love for your country as well whilst playing such a role?
Absolutely, and not only for my armed forces, but also for my country, like you said. And it's a life changing experience to spend time with the army, because they're just made of a different kind of metal. They are people who live and breathe their devotion to what they do, and they literally lay their lives on the line, and that is something that has to be and must be and should be appreciated and respected and thought about and not taken for granted. And more than that, just the stories that these guys have are so incredible. I mean, the experiences that they're able to live, and um, the kind of you know thick skin that they have. They really carry their hearts on their sleeve, and they're
Yeah.
very loving, and at least in our experience have been very, very accepting and gracious and helpful. But at the same time, they're made of some other metal. They have the strength of their convictions, and it's there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn from the lives that they live, and they do sacrifice a lot. They do sacrifice a normal life, you know. But at the same time, I think they're all very proud of the work that they do, and yeah. So it's been a we'll speak more about it specifically, when we
Yeah.
go ahead, when we start revealing stories from the film. But interacting with Brigadier Balram Singh Mehta specifically was also just a joy for me, because I remember my first interaction with him. I had a Zoom call because it was in the pandemic, and
Yeah.
uh, and I spoke to him about having read The Burning Chaffies, which is the book that the film is based on, and the script, etc., and his experience. And one of the things I said to him was, "Sir, uh, I hope you don't mind. I will be bombarding you with a lot of questions." And he said to me with his trademark swagger, he says, "Well, you'll be happy to know, young man, that I'm quite used to a bombardment of a different kind." And I was like, oh man, for us it's just a word. For them, it's a memory. You know?
Yeah, they've lived it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So
It's incredible.
crazy.
No, and like you said, like they are proud of the work they do, and I think we all as Indians are very proud of them as well, for
Yeah.
doing the work they do. I mean, even as a British citizen, I feel very proud of seeing the strong force that India has as a country, and it's great to see the country progressing so well. But I think moving on from Deepa, and I think we will definitely talk about that near the time of release as well. I've always been fascinated actually by your role choices actually, because when I see your films or when I hear Ishan Khatter is in a film, for me, the sudden thought that I get, or what I've observed as a subliminal theme, is about you being a naive guy, very unhinged, very unaware, unsolicited guy who suddenly gets trapped into bottleneck situations which are very beyond his control and extraordinary. So, what draws you to such characters? Do you subconsciously relate with these situations?
That's an interesting observation, and I think I wouldn't use the word naive for every character that I've played, but certainly there is an element of coming of age. I think
Yeah.
in everything that I've done. I think that's by virtue of me getting to play younger roles, because I also started at 21, and that's earlier than any other male actor that I know. The last person that I know started at that age was my own brother 15 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's probably, that has something to do with it. But yeah, I do think I get attracted to slightly to roles that have a bit of an extraordinary element or flair to it, or at least films that allow that arc. Um, I do look for an arc. I do look for a character arc. I feel that if the character is unchanged from beginning to end, then perhaps there isn't that much. It depends. It depends on the kind of film that you're making. But in a general way, I feel like there perhaps isn't that much growth in this character, and thereby there is less for me to express, maybe. And so I look to challenge myself with every role that I take on, and I think maybe that's been one of the things that is a similar theme. That's a good observation. But yeah, I'm also very aware of the fact that at some point I will probably shift, even though my core will remain the same. I'll probably shift my perspective of looking at things as I grow older, and will probably want to attempt roles that perhaps are totally different from what I've been doing so far. The one thing that's definitely happened is I've had roles that are very diverse from each other. And that's, I think, equal part luck and opportunity and choices.
Yeah.
And I like it that, I mean, I hope that it's not too confusing for the audiences, but I try to give them a new experience every time, and I hope that they get behind that as well.
Oh, definitely. No, I think there is definitely that optimism and that anticipation for you and seeing the sort of work that you'll do. I think just to sort of talk about my first question that I asked you about, again, being very diverse work and those aspects, and just an extension of that, the fact that you've obviously grown up with the performing arts as well. I mean, your mom is also a classical dance exponent as well. You've had experience of dancing as well with Shamak. So the fact that you obviously have this very diverse sort of launch into the career, into your acting career. I mean, it's very different from other sort of actors out there that I've seen. So, do you feel the fact that you've kind of had this vision for art and creativity, do you think that's had an impact on why you are quite selective with your work as well?
Yeah, 100%. I think what you put out in the universe, it gives you back in some way or the other. And for me, my ambition has always been more creative than about fame and success and popularity. That is something that I strongly believe is important for my growth as an actor, and to be able to carve the kind of opportunities that I crave and that I want. I need to be in a position that commands it and that allows it. But that's never been my drive. My drive has always been to pursue excellence in my craft and in my art. I really want to be able to grow as a person through what I do, because I think this is one of the few jobs in the world that are so soul satisfying and allow you that opportunity. And I don't want to lose myself to I don't want to lose myself to the external aspects of this life that can sometimes be so overbearing, that they can really consume you. So I really want to retain that childlike quality and that creative quality that brought me here in the first place. And that's what I'm striving towards. I want to keep obviously growing as a performer and keep maturing as a performer, but I don't want to lose that thing that makes me who I am and makes me want to do this. So yeah, and I've been very fortunate to have been cultivated into the arts from a young age. So I've seen that life. I've grown up around it, and it feels natural to me. It doesn't feel like I need to, for the lack of a better way of saying it, put too much effort into being this person. I feel at home on set. For example, I love being on set. I think it's the best working place in the world to be on a movie set.
Yeah, and I think, this is very interesting. I'm glad you said this because I feel like nowadays, especially with the influx of social media, the fact that everything is pretty much instant. You can get everything instantly.
Yeah.
Fame भी आसानी से actually मिल भी जाता है आजकल as well.
Mm.
But do you kind of feel like this conflict as well because of this evolving time? Do you feel a certain sense of conflict actually in you where you're having to ensure that you hold whatever you want to do, like you said, as an actor who's constantly evolving versus being this popular face and being that sort of uh having a high commercial value to you as an actor? Do you feel this sort of dilemma as well nowadays?
Uh, I don't think of it as a dilemma. I think it's important to. I certainly think that it's important to establish yourself as a bankable actor or as a popular actor to be able to, because at the end of the day, it's a commercial art. There is a business involved. We need the money to be able to make the films and to be able to do what we do. So
True.
I think at the very least, if you are making a movie, at the very least it should be entertaining, and along with that entertainment, if you're able to engage an audience in a deeper way, in a more profound way, if you're able to give them an experience that they feel they've grown from and move them emotionally, and the highest order, if you're able to tap into something deeper, something spiritual, then that's the cherry on the cake. But at the very least, you need to be entertaining, because people are spending their money to come into the cinemas. Why else would they,
Hmm.
give their 2 or 3 hours of their valuable time and money to a movie?
Mhm.
So yeah, so for me, that's very clear. Is that it's important to establish yourself, and I'm working towards that. I'm working hard towards that. Working hard towards giving the audience a new experience and an exciting enough experience to want
Mhm.
to watch the work that I'm doing, because
Mhm.
it's not all about me. I do this for the audiences, but at the same time, I don't want to sell my soul either, and I want to keep I don't want to do anything that has no meaning to me whatsoever.
Right.
Phone Booth, uh, for example, was a great big laugh for me in the narration, and I think that's a great virtue if you're able to tickle someone's funny bone, give them a good time, give them a good laugh. We all need a good laugh, especially coming out of the pandemic. We all need to be able to release all that tension, and we all need the good hormones and the dopamine. So yeah, I enjoyed it, and it gave me a new opportunity to explore as an actor. Comedy is not easy. Comedy is very difficult to get right. It's so much about timing. There are so many external variables and factors that you need to
Mhm.
work with to be able to get it right.
Yeah.
And so I certainly enjoyed that. I think we've all had a good time making this film, and I hope that people enjoy seeing it in the theaters and have a good laugh.
Definitely. But I
Yeah.
think this aside, and I think the fact that, every time I've seen you and I've spoken to you, you always come across as very fun, jovial, thoda sa mischievous also. I know that there's that sort of tinge in you as well. But tell me one thing, Ishan. Because I often, I was watching Rockstar and there was this very beautiful line that they said that, that music comes from a broken heart. It comes from a broken part of you as a human being. It comes from that's where art usually comes from. And if we see historically speaking, a lot of the legends that we celebrate now also have that sense of pain in their life, and that's how art came out of that. Do you also feel that as an artist you need to introspect on pain or a part of you that's broken in order to bring art to life?
I save it, man. That's probably why in most of my public interactions you see me as jovial and joyous and fun. But I'm also I'm also a Scorpio, and I have uh, qualities of being a typical Scorpion in that I can be intense and brooding, and I keep things to myself. And I've had quite a journey growing up, which I'm very proud of because it's made me the person that I am. But I've seen life at a young age, and I think that enables me to be able to navigate through life as a stronger person. I think adversity. Um, builds character, and I've been lucky to have been able to take the challenges that life has thrown at me and be able to turn them around, or be able to overcome them. And that's something I'm very proud of. And I don't speak much about it because it's personal to me, and it's something
Of
that
course.
I'd like to keep that way.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm very lucky that I have an outlet as a performer,
Mhm.
as an actor. I'm able to express myself through my work, and I think that's when art happens, is when it becomes personal. And I think my audiences have a greater chance of getting to know me through my work than maybe through my interviews.
But I think they'll get to know you from both, especially after this one for sure. Especially after this one, and I totally respect that. And I think that's what the beauty about you, Ishan, is that आपके ना एक मासूमियत है. जब भी मैं आपको screen पे देखता हूँ, there's that sense of मासूमियत that really beams on screen, and I think I just love that. And please maintain that and keep hold of that, no matter what happens in life, because that is honestly your trump card, I would say, as well for me, in particular. But I think on a final note, going forward. What style of roles do you think will push you further in acting in terms of pushing the envelope and I guess tilting you to the edge?
Well, I certainly want to work with filmmakers of a certain caliber.
Okay.
I don't restrict myself to genres, because as an audience, I've loved and appreciated and admired films of all kinds of genres. I think the quality of film defines, in many ways, defines the genre itself.
True.
So I have loved films of across genres, and I think as a performer, I hopefully have the tools to be able to explore all of them. So I don't restrict myself in that sense, but I definitely want to work with filmmakers that are able to push the envelope and be able to push me as a performer into a space that I've not entered before, and also um, push my limits as a performer, because that's where growth happens, out of your comfort zone. And
Hmm.
I was very lucky to start with Majidi, because Aga Majidi, Majid Majidi, the wonderful filmmaker, who uh, who every day he would treat me with tough love.
Hmm.
He never wanted me to fall into complacency. If I did a shot and I was given an ovation or applause on set, which I was so lucky to receive that on my first film itself. But if something like that happened, he also gave me a role that allowed me that opportunity, I
Hmm.
must add. But if something like that happened the next day, immediately he would pull me down and like, throw me like feet on the ground. Like he'd even if it was not warranted, he would
Hmm.
immediately make me be on my toes. He'd be like, "What do you think? You're walking in a park?" Like, like, so he's been such a he's like one of the voices in my head as an actor and as a professional,
Right.
so that I never become complacent. He taught me those core values that I'll carry with me for the rest of my career, hopefully. And so yeah, so I've been lucky to have that, and I definitely I'm very ambitious about the kind of people I want to work with. I want to work with filmmakers regardless of their country origin, of their politics, and of their creativity. I want to explore new spaces, and I want to work with filmmakers that think differently from each other.
Hmm.
Um, so that's what I'm ambitious about.
That is so wonderful. And I think it's quite ironic as well how your first film had Rahman's score and music, and now even Pipa also has Rahman's music. So I think it's almost in a way coming to a bit of a full circle in a way, even though you're only five
Hopefully,
years
hopefully,
young.
hopefully, Pippa will be a landmark film in that way. But I'm very excited, since you did mention it. I'm very excited because it gives even Rahman sir, just as a Rahman fan, as an AR Rahman fan, it gives him a very exciting space again to be able to score not just the music of the film, not just the playback music, but also the background score, because
Oh,
it's a upscaled war film. So I'm personally also very excited to
I'm
see
so excited.
that. Yeah.
You have no idea how excited I am. But look, Ishan, it's always such a pleasure to have an interview with you. And, I just love the way you articulate your thoughts and the way You're being such a sheer force of talent and everything in between. And God bless you, and may you continue to do such great work. And thank you so much for joining
Thank
me
you.
once again.
You're so kind. Thank you so much, Anuj, and I hope you enjoy the films. Phone Booth on the 4th of November and Pippa coming up very soon.
Definitely.